welcome to today's episode. It's all about death, but I swear it's not going to be a bummer.
It might be.
It might be, unless if you don't like thinking about your own death, it might be a bummer.
But if, like us, you've thought about your death countless times, multiple times a day for the last, almost 40 years, then it'll be fine.
Right? And if you don't want it to be a bummer anymore, if you want to get past it being a bummer, power through this episode, because I'm going to help you get more comfortable with the idea of your death.
Yeah, because we're all gonna die.
We are, and that's a fact that I like to ignore a lot.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And that's something I'm not entirely comfortable with.
Unfortunately? Do you want to live forever? That sounds miserable.
No, you're right. That does sound miserable.
I would vastly prefer death.
Yeah, because I feel like I'll get tired.
Oh, I'm already tired.
I know. Okay, and then it's do you want to live forever as a human who ages, or do you want to live forever like a vampire who never ages? I know,
Neither
right?
fucking one. If I had to go one of the two, then I would pause my aging at about 27.
Yeah.
But luckily, I don't have to choose either. I can just die normal.
There's a lot to be said for just accepting that death is coming, not looking out for it at every turn, but being prepared, being a little more prepared.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, well, and so to the merit of being prepared, one of my best friends, her dad died suddenly from a very random thing. He had gone in to get, I think, a tooth pulled or some dental work, and they ended up fucking him up somehow or other, and they fucked up one of his nerves, and he ended up bleeding into his brain and dying. And this is the guy who didn't really trust banks, kind of had handshake deals. He was a mechanic, had handshake deals with, dozens and dozens of people. And so when she was trying to track down all of his assets, who he owed money to, who owed him money, it was a fucking nightmare. And so even if you genuinely do not think that you are going to die, there's a lot to be said for having your affairs in order.
I have to absolutely agree. A lot of my family members have died with no will, nothing in place. And it's not cool. It's not fun to deal with. So think of the people that you love and go to LegalZoom.com and fill out it's like a fucking template. Fill out a template. Have a will. Even if all you have is a couple of pairs of shoes and your ancient trailer that you have been rotting in like a tuna can. That you have been living in like a tuna can.
Or rotting in.
I don't judge
We're all
how
slowly
you live.
rotting, Erin.
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's true. Go get a will. It's important. And it's not important for you. It's important for the people who have to deal with you.
Unless you really don't like your family, in which case, fuck it.
Oh, yeah.
Bury all your assets in coffee cans all around Nevada. Fuck them.
A lot of people, especially in the West, think there's only two options for death. You can have a burial or you can have a cremation. And I'm here to tell you today that neither one of those sound good to me. There's a lot of just, oh, well, this is what you do, and this is what the funeral director tells you should do, and this is what the funeral home says you should do. And I'm here to tell you, you have some other options. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start at the beginning. Webster's Dictionary.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding.
God.
So we don't need to go through. So what I'm doing is I am going through the first chapter of my book that I wrote. And I don't feel like we need to dive into the history of burial because I'm going to save that for paid. We'll call that paid content. You can buy my book for that. I will, however, start with embalming. Now, the whole point of embalming is to retain your earthly flesh until we can put you in the ground. Now, a lot of people will opt for the embalming because it's just what the funeral director will present you with if you're having a burial. They'll say, okay, here's what happens. The body comes here, we embalm it, we put makeup and wax on it, we sew all its holes shut, we stuff tissue in its butt, and then we present it as if it's a loving vestige of your former family member.
And, I've seen bodies in open casket funerals, and it looks maybe like a wax figure of the person, like an apprentice from like Madame Tussauds.
Yes.
Was like, I saw one picture on Facebook one time of this one person. I'm gonna recreate him.
Yeah, or it would be like if I'm learning taxidermy.
Yes.
And I'm like, there was a squirrel in my yard the other day. I think I know what a squirrel looks like. I don't know what this squirrel looks like. I know what's left of this squirrel. So there's this whole odd disconnect. So a lot of times, especially when people die in an accident, you see them and then you get a phone call that they are gone. You identify them at like the morgue or something. Or if they were in the hospital, or if they're in hospice, you can say, yeah, that's my mom. And then the next time you see them, they are, if you've opted for a casket burial, they are embalmed, they are done up, they are preserved. This is something that I think is very interesting to know the history of. So embalming was not a thing for a very, very long time. If you died, you probably died in or around your house, and communities were different then. Your buddy who was a carpenter, who was your neighbor down the road, made your casket. The funeral was held in your home. They put you in the casket before you had a chance to get stinky. Your other neighbor dug the grave with your brother. Your mom made the food. And so they had this space within the parlors of these older homes that were literally where you would lay out the casket of the person who died. And this was like, these are like the cool caskets. It's not the caskets we had now. It's like the ones that you can buy that are like, bigger at the top and little at the bottom. The only reason I bring this up is I think it's an interesting distinction, because they literally did it because your shoulders are wider than your feet. They're wanting to preserve space. They put you in a casket appropriately sized for your body that they make usually on site. And then they display you for, an hour or 2 hours, because if you had died in or near your home, your family would prepare your body. They would wash you off. They would put you in your favorite dress. They would do your hair. Then they'd stick you in the living room, and then you go in the ground. It was real cut and dry. It wasn't until the Civil War that we ran into embalming. Now, you might think doctors were the ones who were like, oh, shit, okay. Your son went off to war. You want to bring your son's body home. I'll bring your son home. First, I'll embalm him to preserve him so he still looks like your son, because I'm a doctor and I know things, right? No, not at all. Not at all. A literal, like a shyster, like a shyster who had a bag full of snake oil, saw a pile of dead bodies and was like, idea light bulb. I wonder if there was some way to keep them from rotting until they made it home. And I have all these chemicals that I don't know what to do with. I could just like pivot my fucking business. Oh, I know. Megan has the most horrified look on her face right now.
That must have been a real gruesome trial and error.
It was. Ugh. It was. But at that point, people's hope of being able to have their sons return to them from this war had been very, very low, until this one dirtbag with a bag full of chemicals showed up and was like, okay, you don't want my health tonic? Now it's embalming fluid. So
Jesus.
Yeah. So he was like, all right, there's a pile of bodies over there. Bring me one. I'm going to bleed it out. And then I'm going to pump it full of this stuff that I've been trying to shill as like a health tonic and ship it home with some wax in its butt so it doesn't leak. Yeah. That's how embalming became a thing. I always thought it was like, someone lovingly figured out how to replace all the... Nope, some dill hole with a bag full of shit.
Wow.
And that's why now you pay like $1,500 for embalming, because this guy looked at that body and was like, somebody loved him. They wouldn't pay $5 for my health tonic, but they might pay $50 to get their son back. Totally exploiting the family of the dead. This is not to say this was the last time this ever happened in the funeral industry. So, thank you. So that, my friends, is the beginning of the end. Are there lots of funeral directors who are not pieces of shit looking to make money? 100%. And just because a funeral home has been bought out by a bigger corporation, that doesn't also mean that they're looking to like just milk you of every penny you have. But because historically, because of people like this guy whose name has fallen to history, he wasn't even worth like noting. I could not find it in any of my research. It's historically, people have been exploited. you know?
Oh, yeah. No, I had told, I mean, anyone who will listen that when I die, if some just fucking asshole funeral director tries to shiest them into getting a coffin more elaborate than a burlap sack, I will fucking haunt them. Yeah. Because there is no goddamn reason for that.
Absolutely. Now, I will say that the latest and greatest technology in the funeral industry is a hearkening back to the times before embalmers. There is a push to be more green. There's a push to really utilize like the natural resources that we have. Did you know that I'm going to say, I think it was like 72% of the American population did not know that it was legal to keep the body of their family members at home as long as they wanted.
Yeah, I fall into that percentage. I had no idea.
I did too. I thought as soon as they die, you got to call somebody.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. They
Otherwise,
die.
it gets all Ed Gein like.
Right. And then you're like the weirdo that kept Granny in the bed or whatever.
Right.
It turns out there's no legal recourse. If you did not murder the person, you are not responsible for their death. You technically can just call the funeral home. But nobody knows this, so they call 911.
Yeah,
911 sends
like
the
abuse
coroner.
Of a corpse or something.
Now, there is some abuse of a corpse. If your granny died and you call the funeral home, that's fine. If granny died and then you like propped her up and like gave her like a real bad, I'm thinking like whatever happened to Baby Jane makeup job, and then you hacked off her hands and swapped them so the left was the right, the right was the left, that's abuse of a corpse.
So wait, but that's my exact wishes for when I die.
I know, right? And that's why it's important to have a will.
I always wanted a right hand on my left hand and my left hand on my right hand.
I know.
That way I could be fully ambidextrous.
Oh my God, that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I know, right?
So basically, if you wake up in the morning, your husband is dead next to you. You can
One could only wish.
I know. You can wash him. I mean, because he'll have pooped himself at some point and probably peed himself. He might be making that weird, like, gurgly noise. You know, there's a lot going on.
No, Borberigamus is something else. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You can wash him off. You can put him in his favorite clothes. You can spend time with him. You can, Festivus style, you can air all of your grievances at his corpse. And then when you're ready, you can call the funeral home or you can call 911 if you don't know what else to do. If you don't have a funeral home you've picked out. Now, that is something that legally you can do. You can also bury said person in your backyard if you want to.
And I don't have to let anyone know?
That's the hiccup. You have to let someone know.
Like my mom or
well,
what?
in some places there's a licensing issue.
Yeah, I live in an apartment complex.
Yeah. So if you now, and I only learned this as of recently, if you bury a body legally on your private property, as Trump did with his ex-wife Ivana,
God,
then that
poor woman
is no longer considered strictly residential, and there are tax breaks because it's now technically a funeral. Or not a funeral, it's now technically a graveyard. Because there is a body present. So you can do all the things that they used to do. There's just a little bit more paperwork and some fees. In some places, not all places, there's still like rural Kansas, you can just put Granny in a hole in the backyard and just like let someone at, death records know. So that way, or at like, where they do the land management so that there's like, it's on record that if you sell that house, that Granny comes with it. But really things are just that simple. Funeral homes have, if you think of a funeral home instead of the standard practice and more like, I want shoes. Amazon, that's like a cremation. You know, you go online, you pick some shoes, they come to you, they fit or they don't, but either way, you've bought some shoes in an easy way. That's like a cremation. You send the body off, cremated, you get back some ashes. A funeral home is like walking into I don't know, like whatever fancy high-end shoe store there is. And they go, wait, do you know your size? But are you sure? Could that have changed? Let's measure your foot. Now let's see where pressure is on your heel and your toe. They roll out the red fucking carpet for you. And they're like, let's make sure, do you need an orthotic? Are your toes hammered? Do you have hammered toes? You know, like,
so it's like going to the SAS store.
It is like going to the SAS store. And it's one of those things that, like, absolutely it's an option. It's an option almost everyone goes for. And they're like, you know, you give us some information, we will handcraft you this amazing shoe. You're going to pay for it, but you also get the experience of not having any worries about, can I return this shoe if it doesn't fit right? You know, we will take care of everything.
Can I return the corpse if it looks weird?
So there is some recourse that you can have if your corpse yeah, there is definitely. So, I mean, really, instead of thinking of it as like cremation or funeral, really you're choosing between Amazon shoes or fancy shoe store where they cater to my every whim. The prices go along with that because they offer a service, you know, and their whole thing is like,
I'm just going to take a couple of bread bags, put them on my feet,
put them
call
on your
it a day.
feet. Well, and that's the whole thing is they organize the funeral. They make sure that there are people there to open the door. There are people there that bring in the body. There are people to prepare the body. I mean, it is like a full service fucking shoe store. So there are so many other options, many of which are available in America. And if you're not listening from America, and I know there's a bunch of people in Europe that listen to us, there's people in France, there's people in Africa, there's people in Tibet that listen to us, which I forgot to tell you is really exciting. All around the world, people and cultures embrace death differently. There are some places where it's celebrated and more like here where it's toned down. Now, if you guys remember a while ago where Megan and I were talking about how gross it was that this rapper guy got killed and then they propped his corpse up at like his funeral concert and then that was
pretty dope.
It's getting more and more popular. And Caitlin, the Good Death, Caitlin, I think it's Caitlin Doty. I think it's how you say her name. She has a whole episode on this rapper guy that just came out on her YouTube. It's very interesting to watch.
I'm going to check that out.
It's so good. And I'll put it up in the show notes, but it's like all about how grossed out we are by that idea. And like, it grossed me out big time. But, so my point is we are getting more alternatives to the traditional fancy shoe process. And I think that it's my job as someone who researched them in depth to let you know there are other options. So we're just going to go down the line. I'm going to not quick fire. We're going to talk about each one that I have researched for my book, mostly because those are the only ones I know a lot about. I'm sure there are more in addition to these. I mean, feel free to email me if you have questions, utterlyunrelatedpod@gmail.com, or hit my Insta DMs, like wherever you want to get a hold of me and tell me that there's other options. Like, let me know, because like, this is my bag. I'm writing a book about death and quite literally what happens to your body after you die. So
did you cover ballistics testing?
I did in my forensics.
Because your family can get money if you let your body be used for ballistics testing.
Yes, yeah. So that's really interesting too, and that's part of donating your body.
Which I am heavily down to donate my body. I'm not fucking using it anymore.
Right. So here's my thing: be an organ donor, donate your body. You don't have any funeral costs. Then your family's not saddled with your ashes that they have to move from place to place as they grow old. Or they have to feel like a monster going, all right, I don't want to carry these ashes of great grandma around anymore. What do I do with them? You're not saddled to like, oh, I've got to go to the cemetery back in North Dakota because that's where my mom wants to be and that's where I have to go to visit her, you know? So I think there's so many good options. If you choose to donate your body to like science or whatever, you know, donate all your organs, donate your body. You can help with research for composting bodies, because that's a big thing.
Yeah, the body farm.
There's ballistics. There's all different things that your body can do to help with the death industry. So, you know, it's like giving back. And I really like that idea. So we're going to start with my top favorite. My number one favorite is a sky burial. Would you hearken to guess what a sky burial is?
Oh, no, I already know.
Okay, because
I'm a morbid person. I don't know this shit. Come on.
So when I first heard sky burial, I was like, "Ooh, they're going to throw me out of a plane into the ocean."
Oh, that would be. What if they missed and you just like fell on a I don't know, a preschool or something.
That would be terrible. I saw the flaw in that plan almost instantly, but I did for a few minutes just picture my like dead cross-eyed corpse just like fling it out into the ocean and then hitting a beaver or like a dolphin or whatever. And then I felt bad. But a sky burial is most common in Tibet, and it's most common among Buddhists who believe in the value of sending their loved ones' souls towards heaven. Thus, sky, they put them in the top of a tower outside. They often cut the body into pieces, so there's no embalming, there's nothing. You just hike it up. It's a tower or the top of a mountain, especially in Tibet. You take it to the top, you let the vultures eat it. It sounds really romantic. Honestly, I've eaten a lot of animals. I'm good being food for animals.
Yeah, for sure.
The only problem is when this tradition was started, there were a lot more vultures in the world. They've sort of become endangered. There are more bodies than there are vultures at this point in Tibet. So this romantic idea... So
it's a good time to be a vulture.
It is a good time to be a vulture because you'll be a very fat, happy vulture. It is a bad time to be a dead body at the top of a tower waiting for a sky burial because you're gonna soup before you become an appetizer. So just like even keep in mind if you're thinking of sky burial like I am, just check on
the vulture population.
Check on the population. So next, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm not. Famadahana of Madagascar is perhaps best described as dancing with the dead. This was very interesting. The people of Madagascar open the tombs of their dead every few years, rewrap them in fresh burial cloths, and every time they get fresh wrappings, they also get a fresh dance near the tomb while music plays around them. So the ritual is meant to speed up decomposition and push the spirit of the dead towards the afterlife, the idea being that the spirit is inside the body after death until it's decomposed. I like the idea of dancing. These people, though, they live a very different life in Madagascar. I'm not saying it's not civilized, but I think traditionally it's far more indigenous, and so they're not as grossed out by the idea of a rotting corpse as we are. And that's like Malaysia, Thailand, all these different Eastern cultures really are good with just like hanging out with dead bodies.
That's dope.
Yeah. So that being said, I think that sounds like fun.
It's a really healthy way to view death, and if you have a good outlook on death, then chances are your outlook on life is pretty good too.
Exactly. And that's the big problem. That's why I'm pushing this death positive movement. That's why I'm writing this book, is because in the West, we have, with the fancy shoe store, we've taken away all of the choice and the acknowledgement and the awareness of the process of someone dying. Okay, someone dies abruptly. That's fucking jarring. The last time you see them, they look like bad Madame Tussauds or bad taxidermy, and then they're just gone forever. Your grief process, I would dare say, is drawn out by this jarring and unrealistic depiction of death. And so, like, the idea that just, like, people die and they just go away and we don't deal with them is so Western. But it's also not good for our souls. If we don't get a chance to say the proper goodbye, or if we don't get a chance to have this understanding culturally of, like, the process of them leaving this earth. It took 9 months for them to form and to be born. And then they're just gone and dead. Like, that's what most people struggle with is, like, I mean...
I don't know, man. Like, I think that those people aren't used to the concept of death, though. Like, yeah. That's how, some people... Okay, my son, his grandfather is dead. I mean, he died fucking years ago, decades ago. And he was asking about Grandpa Kurt and what happened to Grandpa Kurt. And so I was like, well, he died. And he said, well, why did he die? And... I mean, I didn't want to tell him the real reasons. And so I was like, well, some people live fast like Grandpa Kurt, and some people live slow like Grandma Vonnie, his great-grandmother, who is 93. But that's true. That's, some people take their time getting to death, and some people just, get kind of bored living and expedite the process.
I think this is a really beautiful way to explain it to a 4-year-old. I think that's brilliant. Some people are not here for very long and some people are. And yeah, I mean, because if we culturally had more of an embracing of the process of dying and death, which I think is what a lot of people are striving for now, this this idea that like we need to become more comfortable with it, less desensitized to it, and then everyone will acclimate to it better. I mean, it used to be that like, hunter gatherers, when someone was killed, they carried their bodies to a spot, buried them, they processed them and they put them in the ground and they sent them back from whence they came. And I mean, culturally, it's always been a thing. I think we've just become so more and more disconnected with it. Like, okay, if I told you you're pregnant, you're going to give birth, your vagina is going to tear, your asshole is going to split, and you may even lose feeling in your clit because you might have nerve damage, what would you think? Having never experienced any someone talking to you about that.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds fucking nightmarish, right? But you gave birth. And so because you had a visceral experience, that not everybody loses feeling in their
my
clit.
shit's fine.
Yeah, your asshole probably didn't tear open.
It's normal. Same asshole it's always been.
So I think that I think that now that if you were to have another baby, would you be nervous about giving birth?
Nah.
Yeah. Right? So I think it's the same with death. I think if we have some experience with it, we know what to expect.
Yeah, that's probably why I'm fine with death. Like I started experiencing death at a really young age, and then it just never stopped. Yeah. And so like for all intents and purposes, I really am desensitized to it. It's just another thing that happens, like paying taxes or going to the supermarket or, taking the trash out or, getting a mani-pedi. Like it's just, it's another event in life that happens. And if it didn't happen, then life couldn't go on.
Exactly. I think that a lot of the fancy shoe approach takes away that dealing with the reality of the death of a person. And so my goal with this book, my goal in life, is to help people get answers to things that scare them and make them less scary. That's the whole point of this. I just want to take away the fear associated with like gross dead bodies. Everything's nasty. Where does it go?
Well, do you think that part of the Western fear of death and dying also plays in a bit with like the cosmetic industry, the cosmetic surgery industry? Because the more we age visibly, the closer people associate us with death and dying.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. When someone ages like Courtney Cox, that very unnatural filler in your face.
She got all that removed and she looks closer to normal now, but
versus someone who opted not to do any of that, like Betty White, it's like a more
she
natural
looks
progression.
Fucking amazing for like
awesome.
100.
Yeah, and I think there's this,
she looks 65, like her entire television run.
Yeah, she did. And you're absolutely right. It's the difference, well, one, generationally, but two, if you look at the stereotypes that Courtney Cox helped to perpetrate, that beautiful women were thin, they were unaging, like her whole thing about being Monica, on TV for all those years, she was thin, she was funny, she was all, she was beautiful, she was all these things. She also had terrible health problems, probably from being malnourished. She had trouble conceiving, her daughter and stuff. And like, so no one ever talks about the downside of that. I think you're 100% on the nose with the beauty industry is partly responsible for this. Yeah, because they don't acknowledge that death is coming or happening or anything. Unlike in these, I don't know, what some people will call third world countries, that have this really natural association with that. And that's that's where you go, and women have never heard of makeup or fillers or fucking...
I'm sure they've heard of it.
Well, I that's true. I'm sorry. They don't on a regular basis use things
the
like
beauty
that.
standards are different.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Like more realistic and normal.
Yeah, they're more realistic. They're not so hyper
focused on youth.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's why they're so much more comfortable with this kind of thing. These different kinds of burials. Of course, India is well known for parading their dead through the streets. they display bright colors on the dead bodies of people, displaying the virtues that they held in life, like red for purity or yellow for knowledge.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
But if you paraded a dead body through Portland, you'd be gross and morbid, So it's, like, I think we just need to understand each other more. There's no need for so much division, even in death. I do love that in India, though, they have these giant pyres that are always going to cremate people, and then the bodies are sprinkled with water from the Ganges River and then cremated at the town's main cremation grounds. That
sounds fucking romantic. That's cool as fuck.
Oh yeah, there's this pyre that's always burning, and so people are always being cremated. I will say the downside to that is that people nowadays are filled with toxins and forever chemicals.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So there is a big black plume of smoke that exists that these people are putting off.
Oh, though, that's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's an eternal flame. That's cool as fuck.
That is cool as fuck. And like
the fact, such symbolism.
Oh my God. And the fact that they are shrouded in the colors that symbolize who they were as people and not put together like wax figures to remember what they looked like, I think is such an important difference.
Oh, that's fucking cool. I like that quite a bit.
It's so cool. Let's see.
Zoroastrian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Freddie Mercury was actually.
Oh. Yeah. So go ahead and say it again.
Zoroastrian.
Thank you. It's one of the world's oldest organized religions and has most of its roots in Iran, which makes sense because he was
Iranian?
Yeah, he was Iranian.
I know that his birth name was Farouk Balsara, which is so beautiful.
Farouk
Balsara.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Farouk means. It means
I knew.
No, Feruza means blue, like
blue. Oh yeah, like
okay.
Ball,
yeah, I got confused. Yeah, he was Iranian, I believe.
He was fucking gorgeous.
He was.
So gorgeous.
But they have this cool tradition where a dead body is believed to defile everything it touches. I don't know. And I only say this is cool because they've come up with really creative solutions. So including the ground and fire, it defiles everything it touches. So instead of burying or cremating a body, they raise a corpse to the sky for vultures to eat, much like they do in Tibet with the Buddhists. But first, they use bull's urine to clean the body, and then tools are used to remove the clothing, which is then destroyed. And then the body is placed atop a tower of silence out of the way of the living who could be tainted by it. So you're acknowledging it.
I wouldn't call that death positive.
It's not death positive in the sense that what I'm speaking out about now, but I think it's cool because they were so dead set that like, icky, that they found all these creative ways to acknowledge
those
and
are some
deal
workarounds.
With.
Well, and okay, so
that part
I would imagine though that would be useful in times of plague or uncertainty.
Exactly.
Which is likely where it spawned from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like that is, while it's a dysfunctional way to look at it, it is acknowledging. So they did, I think that's more acknowledging than we do now. I mean, in a way, because there's dudes that have to use the sticks. I don't know. I might have to think about that one a little bit more. Cremation is, of course, one of the most common choices around the world, but South Koreans actually use the ashes of their dead to make beads, which I think is amazing.
Oh, no, that's dope as fuck.
The beads,
I like that.
Oh my gosh. They come in many colors from pink or black or turquoise, and then they are placed inside glass vases or in open dishes so the beads can take center stage inside a home.
Oh my God, that's fucking cool.
Isn't that really cool? So you don't have like an urn that's full of like creepy ashes.
Right. You can make jewelry out of gram.
Yeah, totally.
That's cool as fuck. I like that.
I like that too, especially because, like in Korea, there's not much space. And so, I mean, really, there's nowhere for cemeteries. And that's something we're running into also with like deforestation and all these different urban sprawls. And like, there's just no place in the ground to put people for much of the world. But yeah, so for some, it's the only realistic choice instead of burying the dead. And it gives the loved ones a new tradition to embrace. And then you have like, I mean, if you think about it exponentially, you can have all these generations of your family in these beautiful colors on display in your home.
I absolutely love that.
It's so romantic, right? I love it. So if we jump to the Philippines, they've given a rise to a okay. Jumping to the Philippines, there are many diverse regions in the Philippines, and they have given rise to many diverse burial rituals. So the Tinguian people dress the dead in elaborate outfits, and then they put the body in the chair, often giving it cigarette, like they give them a cigarette or put a cigarette between their lips. The Benguet people blindfold their dead before placing them in chairs at the entrance of the home.
I could see that. Corpse eyes are kind of invasive.
They are odd. Corpse eyes are, yeah, they range from milky to bulging, right? So
yeah, it all depends on how they died.
Yeah. The Sagada region features coffins hung from cliffs.
Cool.
Which is really cool. While people in, I think it's Cavite, often entomb the dead vertically in hollowed out trees chosen by the person before their death.
Okay, that's awesome as fuck.
I really like that idea. In Cambodia, the funeral rituals of the family, the funeral ritual is that the family washes and prepares the body, and that if they believe if the body is embalmed or not or altered in any way, that the soul will not be able to reincarnate. So I really like that idea because it's the idea of leaving as in a pure form as you were when you were born, same in, same out kind of a thing. After they have spent 3 days in a coffin, the body is then usually taken to a crematorium via a large funeral procession. And that procession will usually include family members and monks and a priest, and mourners will often shave their heads and wear white, which is the international, or not international. It is the Cambodian color of mourning. And so then after the corpse is cremated, the ashes will stay in the temple with the monks, who are said to help the soul's journey onto their new life.
That would be a great job, I think.
That would be so much fun if you were the monk with the ashes. I think that would be really cool.
Like that.
So since we live in a time now where there are like really exciting options, if none of those appealed to you when you're planning your funeral, you can try some of these. So the natural burial movement started in 1998 with the opening of the all-natural cemetery Ramsey Creek Preserve in Westminster, South Carolina.
And it's fucking gorgeous.
It is so pretty. I haven't been there, but the pictures look like where the teddy bears went for their picnic in that song.
I've seen a walkthrough and it's like the most beautiful nature preserve.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
It's stunning. And there's at least 50 natural cemeteries in the country as of right now, and many more conventional cemeteries are now providing a natural burial section.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's so cool. So the reason that this started, of course, is because of the rising costs of embalming and funeral expenses and the environmental impact that the chemicals have. And so they're just looking back to that, like what we talked about before, embalming. You just like take them and you put them in the ground. And I think I like that idea of giving back to the earth with your whole body instead of because honestly, when you're embalmed and you're put in the ground, and I say this as someone who lives below 2 cemeteries, below meaning I am in the middle of the mountain/hill. The cemeteries are at the top, I am in the middle, and then at the bottom is the rest of Portland. The smell in my yard is abominable. So when the rains come all fall, and all winter it's wet, and all spring it rains, and the summer hits, the hot sun trying to dry out the soil on my property, it smells like fucking death. It smells like corpses. It is horrific. It is disgusting. Nothing will grow in my yard because all of my water, all of my soil, all of my land is tainted by formaldehyde and funeral chemicals and people who were pumped full of toxic shit and then buried just up the hill. Everything's contaminated. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing when we bought this house. Otherwise, I probably would have not bought this house. Mostly because of the smell and that nothing grows. But yeah, I have never successfully grown anything. Even in amended soil, I have not been able to grow anything. And what I grow probably should not be eaten right out of the dirt because it'll be all full of fucking forever chemicals, pumped full of people. So on top of like running out of space and land contamination, like it's just good to look into other sources. I mean, if you're the kind of person that cares about the world you're leaving behind for the rest of us, like everyone in my neighborhood has the same smell. Out in Happy Valley, like further over, I get wafts of the same smell on a warm day. So,
does natural burial cost more? Do you know?
That's an interesting question. So it does not in general cost more. What you're paying for mostly is the permits and the land. But yeah, the whole basis of it being appealing is that it's less expensive.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a big part.
Sometimes simple things cost more, so I just figured I'd ask.
Absolutely. For those who prefer to try and save the ocean, there's the Eternal Reef option. This sounds cool as fuck if I wasn't terrified of the ocean.
I've never heard of this.
Oh, Eternal Reefs is a Georgia-based company that creates artificial reef material out of a mixture of concrete and bone that is left over after cremation, which is so cool because a lot of people don't know this, but when you're cremated, your bones don't just turn to ash. Like
they gotta mortar and pestle them.
Exactly. They have to go in and they have to get the big bones. So they will cremate all the fatty parts of you, and then they will take your bones and they will turn you into a reef. And the heavy concrete reefs are placed in areas where coral reefs need restoration, and it attracts fish and other organisms, and you turn into a whole undersea habitat.
So does that cost more, or is it more of like a donation thing?
That, I believe, is fairly expensive. But fairly expensive is subjective, right? So probably out of my price range, but maybe not out of like, I'm trying to think of someone like,
if it's out of your price range, it's definitely out of mine.
Yeah, like I'm not sure. That's a good question. We'll have to Georgia-based or Eternal Reefs did not have a price list that I saw.
Nah, it means it's real expensive.
Yes, but you become an ecosystem for the rest of time, which is pretty cool.
I mean, same if you're buried in the backyard, though. But like, okay,
yeah, that's true. You just do it for the ocean. If you want to spend eternity in space rather than on Earth, you can always opt to have your ashes shot into space. Your cremated remains can hitch a ride on a rocket headed for the stars. This is, of course, more fun than practical because only 1 to 7 grams of you are actually launched because that's all they can carry because there's a weight limit. And then you're like burning up all that rocket fuel. I mean, if you're...
It's not so eco-friendly, though.
It's not eco-friendly. If you're... Honestly, if they're already going up there, Yeah,
may as well hitch a ride.
Yeah, then like for sure. But like... Yeah, no. Celotis Memorial Space Flights is a company that offers postmortem flights. So your cremains experience zero gravity before returning to Earth. As of my research, they started at $1,000. A chance to orbit Earth and eventually burn up in the atmosphere is around $3,000. Dedicated space lovers can have themselves launched to the moon or into deep space for $10,000 and $12,000, respectively. Very expensive, not at all eco-friendly. But if you really wanted to see space, I mean, probably because you're a ghost now, you're floating above the Earth, and so you can see space. But so can the ashes of your former butt. Do you enjoy being the center of attention?
Not really.
Oh, then plastination is probably not for you. But that's where you preserve your body in a semi-recognizable form. You know that show Bodies that travels around? Yeah. So invented by the anatomist Gunther von Hagens, plastination is used in medical schools and anatomy labs to preserve organs and specimens for education. Yeah, like where the Bodies exhibit, there's a lot of issues with that because those are not willing participants.
Yeah, actually, that was one thing that made me take my organ donor off of my license for like a decade. Was I was like, okay, like I want people to have my useful organs and tissues. I don't really want to be put on display, though.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, if you're down, if you like being on display, you could be an obsy someday.
Like, I'm a never nude anyway.
Yeah.
And so in death, I really just don't want people being like, why would she get that tattoo? Like, I get
no, they take your skin off.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's
sometimes
true.
They do. And
that's
also,
true.
I don't know that makes it better.
No, it doesn't. No. Because they still build your face up. I mean, with muscle and stuff. Yeah. So according to them, thousands of people are just fighting to the front of the line to donate their bodies for education and display. So
if they can do that, I don't want it.
Another eco-burial option is a process called Cremation, invented by Swedish marine biologist Suzanne Wig Masick. Suzanne. It involves immersing the corpse in liquid nitrogen, which makes it very brittle, sort of like the T-1000 in Terminator 2. And then vibrations shake the body apart, and the water is evaporated away in a special vacuum chamber. Then a separator filters out any mercury fillings or surgical implants that you have, and the powdered remains are laid to rest in a shallow grave.
That's always how I figured I would end up anyway.
That's very, like, Swedish. That's very IKEA of them, because I just feel like that's so many steps.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And then you never, ever can find the right little wrenchy thing.
Right? There's a bin at the front of the... like cemetery for your shallow remains. Let's see. With a shallow burial, oxygen and water can mix with the powdered remains and turn them into compost. No one has yet chosen this service as of summer 2022.
I know all the shit I put into my body. I would not grow good food.
Dude, I wouldn't either. But they have branched out into the UK from Sweden, so they're optimistic.
Wait, so they've had 0 customers and they were like, maybe it's just not the right market. Let's expand.
Let's go to the UK. Yeah.
That sounds lofty.
I know that, that's hubris for sure. Aquamation is the procedure of being bathed in water, which speeds up the decomposition process. It's not the simplest way to dispose of a body. However, it seems a better alternative to being cremated. To some people, it's often called a water cremation.
Yeah, I've always wondered, what the fuck?
I mean...
What any of that is it? I don't know anything about it.
It's basically just... You know how... Okay, here in Portland, we have to compost all of our food. Mm-hmm. In our yard debris bins. And so, like, it gets real stinky 2 weeks into the summer, so you wash it out, but you can't get it all, so next week you wash it out again once it's empty, and then you wash it out again, and each week you get a little more of the schmutz off. It's kind of like that, but with, like, your body. They're just like, instead of putting you into a thing that burns you up, they're just like, they just wash you, and, like, as your flesh rots, it sloughs off, and that kind of thing. So
what did they do with the bones?
It's a good question. Can they put them in the Reef? Maybe you can send your bones to the Reef place.
Yeah, but then that's an extra money step.
I know, and then there's all the, like, medical stuff left behind in your body.
Yeah, it's just a whole thing.
I'm gonna have to look into that because I'm not sure. That's really good. These are really good questions for my second draft or third draft. Resomation is an eco-friendly burial method that decompresses the body using an alkali and water-based solution under high pressure. This breaks down the body to a liquid and bone ash. The liquid can be recycled into the ecosystem by pouring it into a garden, similar to the spreading of ashes, while the bone ash is collected and placed in an urn. Well, that's like so many steps.
So fucking many.
Yeah, we could be simpler.
It's just a whole thing.
Dissolution is the quick and easy process of a body being placed into a tank of strong chemicals. We call this the barrel method.
Oh, I call it Dahmering.
Yes, it's Dahmering.
I think they did that on Breaking Bad, didn't they?
I was just going to say it's Breaking Bad. Yes. Often the body is separated limb from limb to save space. Yeah, this is Dahmering for sure. If you aren't squeamish, this could be fine, but it's not really green or sustainable or very cool. Memorial diamonds. Now we're getting a little more.
Now that's
bougie.
Cool as fuck.
It is. You wouldn't think it would be that expensive because
I
lab-grown
would.
diamonds, but, yeah. Basically, memorial diamonds are a cool option if you love bling and are comforted by the thought of wearing your loved one. Diamonds are made by pressurizing hair or ashes of the deceased in the same way real diamonds are made, but much quicker. 3D processing 3D printing has changed a lot too. It's opened a whole range of opportunities for graphic designers who want to become a throwaway piece of plastic. So you can have your ashes turned into ink and then 3D printed.
I know people who have gotten their loved ones' ashes tattooed in them.
Yeah, that's been around for a bit. You can have your ashes mixed with paint and then paint it into a piece of art.
That sounds cool too.
Yeah, that would be cool.
See, all of this goes back to me still thinking that cremation's dope, because then, like, after I'm cremated, you can, like, do all this stuff with me.
Yeah, that's true. You can have your ashes added to a firework and then lit off at your own funeral.
Yeah.
Exploding into colors one last time.
Yeah, that sounds dope as fuck.
Now this one. Okay, you can have your ashes compressed into a fucking record of your favorite song or a voice message for loved ones to play so you can speak from the grave. I know, right? The options are endless, really, but weighing what makes the most sense to your pocketbook, ethics, and sense of humanity will help you make what decision is right for you. Now, we didn't even get into, like, the mushroom bags, where you can be put into basically like a burlap sack and covered in mushroom spores, and
now,
which is cool.
I think that would be a good solution for people who had undergone like a ton of radiation toward the end of their life.
Yeah, because mushrooms, you eat them and then they eat you. I mean, really. There's also the human composting, which we talked about a little bit, but it's quite literally, you have a pile of leaves and then a body and then some cardboard and then more leaves and then some soil and some mushrooms and stuff. I mean, they make a lasagna out of you and they literally compost you.
That's what I would do to hide a body anyway. Sounds great.
Right? The only problem is there's a lot of teeth and bones left, but that's not really a problem if you're,
it's not a problem if you have a mortar and pestle.
Well, exactly.
And enough time on your hands.
Excuse me. Well, and it's totally green in the sense that you're decomposing all of the things that would normally create like plumes of smoke or bad emissions or that sort of thing. And then, yeah, you have the bones to do whatever with, to take them and go like, bone dust into diamonds is still cool. It doesn't have to be like my ass ash. And then there's, of course, like, there's this place on Instagram, I can't remember the name of it. They are in Portland, and they put your dead body in like a barrel. And then they just sprinkle soil on top of you. And then you're like in a warehouse with like, it's like a Costco sized warehouse with racks and racks and racks of people. And they just rotate you and put more compost onto you until you become dirt. Yeah. I know Megan's face is very appropriate.
Smell.
I know. And in all of their TikToks and their Instagram videos, they're just like smiling. There's no acknowledgement of smell. They've clearly gone smell blind. But they look like totes that you get at Walmart to like keep your fucking old clothes in.
I don't
like
know.
A Rubbermaid tote.
Like, okay, I kind of subscribe to the Frank Reynolds school of body disposal of like, when I'm dead, just throw me in the trash. I don't fucking care. Just whatever the least expensive thing is, that's fine. If for some stupid fucking reason you decide to like bury me or get a headstone or whatever, don't visit me. I'm not there. Like, I've never understood visiting cemeteries for non-goth reasons. Like, oh, it's Labor Day, let's fucking put a scarf on Uncle Vinny's grave. Like, I don't understand it. It's not something that we ever did in my family.
Yeah,
it's
totally
a weird thing, but I don't know, all this stuff kind of, I'm like, well, fuck, like, if you could turn me into a diamond, that's also sick. You know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of stuff I don't want done. I don't want to be on display. I don't particularly want to be buried, mostly because, it's so much more expensive.
It is. And honestly,
and there's no fucking reason for it.
No, honestly, it's kind of selfish.
Yeah, I mean, like, unless you're burying me in the backyard.
Yeah.
Fine with that. Don't care. That sounds fine. Do it. If that's the least expensive option, by all fucking means.
I mean, the cemeteries up here, that's like 300-400 acres that they're taking up.
Yeah, it's huge.
That no one could live on. I mean, unless we do like a poltergeist situation and we just build the neighborhood over and don't say anything. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. Honestly, I joke about the sky burial, but I mean, not that I joke. Like, there's nowhere to just put me on top of a mountain and have the vultures eat me. But like, I mean, I guess you could drive me out to Larch Mountain. There's a mountain there. Honestly, I think the easiest thing to do, and I don't know if this is 100% legal. I actually need to look into it. But throw me in the ocean. You know, fishies will eat me. My bones will become reef-like or
chum the water with me.
Yeah.
Go on a shark watching expedition, whatever.
Yeah. Because, like, yes, I am terrified of the open ocean now. But that's because I'm conscious and I'm aware. When I'm dead, I will be too busy, like, haunting an IKEA to worry about my bones being at the bottom of the ocean. And I will have been fish snacks.
Man, I'm going to take a long nap once I'm dead.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's, I mean, really, yeah, just like throw me in the ocean. I'm good with that. Let me be food for fish, even though I don't eat fish. They can eat me. I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with them
They're probably not allergic to me like I am to them.
Oh, one thing that you should talk about that I did not know is, about how people who have undergone radiation cannot be
So their cremations are extremely expensive or cannot be done depending on how much radiation treatment they've had and how much chemo, because they are so incredibly radioactive. It's not safe, and then they have to be processed in a completely different way. My old boss had died of metastatic cancer, and she had so much radiation in her body, in her tiny little body, that I think either she couldn't be cremated or they had to pay to have her shipped off to this special radioactive processing plant. It was so fucking sad.
That's crazy. Like, could she be buried?
No.
Okay, good. Well, because, you know, sometimes there's weird double standards of like, you know, you can't be, you know, burnt, but like we can just put you in the ground and grow tomatoes on you, and that's fine.
Right? Don't eat the tomatoes or do whatever. No, like some people, like, modern medicine can create a real sticky situation for, like, you don't want to create a Chernobyl with, like, because technically, from what little I understand about radiation, it blooms under pressure and under fire, right? Like, fire, its whole thing is, like, it's always expanding. That's why it's so dangerous, right? That's why you have to have, like, the cooling tanks and stuff in the cores. I mean, there's a lot of implications of having a ton of radiation and then being put in the ground or being cremated. There's a lot, and we probably don't even know the full extent of it, but there's just a lot. There's a lot.
Man, I had no idea.
I know people don't think about it at all. I never thought about it until it happened to my boss and his wife, you know? And so it was just like, I mean, because she had had breast cancer and then metastatic cancer for like 30 years. I mean, it had just gone on and on and on. She was so sick all the time.
Man, that's terrible.
And like my old best friend's mom, who I adored, who was like a second mom to me, she had the same thing where she fought cancer for so many years, and she had so many rounds of chemo and radiation. And I mean, it's so awful. On the upside, they seem to have found a cure for breast cancer. Have you heard about this?
What? No. I thought that the cure was just lop it off and hope for the best.
That's
what we do in my family.
So there's me saying it's a cure for cancer is a little premature, but they have found a specific cell or some form of treatment that it's like this special cell. And I'm literally telling, like, everyone just Google it, because I don't have all the details. I don't have the knowledge, but they found one cell or one thing that just obliterates cancer. Never comes back.
Okay, blanketly cancer or specifically breast cancer?
Specifically breast cancer.
Because it's different.
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of the hard thing with, you can't blanketly find a cure for cancer, because that's like saying, we have a cure for hair. Well, which hair?
Pubic hair?
Where?
Face hair?
What type? There's different, different hair has different structures, like cat hair.
Oh, yeah. Did you know?
People hair, donkey hair, eyebrow hair.
Yeah, it's for breast cancer. They're learning how to expand it so that they can work with it and use it to cure other types of cancer.
Cool.
But yeah, it's like, it's not some miracle cure. It's like a legit science found a thing and then it worked and they were like, oh shit, this is like, we're on the cusp of like the big reveal.
That would be fucking dope. My aunt has had breast cancer, I think like 3 times or something. Like, yeah, just a lot of times.
Breast cancer and pancreatic cancer can just fuck right off.
Colorectal cancer too, because like that shit metastasizes, and when it does, with the breast cancer, the shitty part about it metastasizing is it's so close to not only bones but other really important organs.
Yeah.
And then same thing with like colorectal cancer, like it's so close to other things, unless it's caught really quick. It's
Yeah, my mother-in-law had colorectal cancer.
Damn.
They caught it real quick though, and she
good.
has to. Oh my god, she has to get a colonoscopy all the time.
That's lame.
That's a bummer. I feel bad for her. I've never had one yet. Dave's had one. I've watched him have one. I mean,
Ryan Reynolds said it wasn't too bad.
It's probably not too bad. The part
they knock you out.
Yeah.
All the guys I know over like 45 are like, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
They knock you out. They
it's the preparing for it that
Yes.
sucks.
That's mainly what I've heard. But no, like so many in my family, cancer runs in my family, like really bad. But so far, unless you count myelodysplasia, which is like kind of a form of leukemia, so far it has only taken one of us out.
That's not too bad.
And my family's got some pretty large numbers. Like we are we are legion.
Now, if you want to do this, go ahead.
With Bobby, he was fighting it for fucking ever. Like, and it was like all over his skin, like his back and stuff. And so it was just, and he's a fucking big dude. He wasn't heavy particularly, but he was very tall and built like a cowboy.
Oh man.
And yeah, well, I mean, he doesn't care now.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, like it's a trip, like how invasive cancer can be.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's scary. If you live in Oregon, then you can sign up for the Healthy Oregon Plan, and they will screen you. You send them a tube of spit. They will screen you for genetically how predisposed you are to different types of cancer. I will put I'll put the link for it on my show notes. It's very cool, and it's a way that you can sort of be proactive about what are your chances of breast cancer? What are your chances of this? We have no cancer in my family. It came back. None. I have no risk of cancer. I mean, unless I like go back to smoking. Give it to myself.
I have to actually, given how high the risk is in my family, I have to start getting mammograms in 2 years.
Ooh, yeah. Gosh.
Ugh. Well, I mean, it's better that than having cancer. Like, whatever.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. Yeah,
screen me. I don't give a shit.
Deal. Oh.
I'd rather know and just get it like nipped in the bud, because and that's a fuck of it with cancer. Early detection. I know that they say it, but seriously, that's the fuck of it. Is like early detection is key.
Exactly. So everybody stay safe. Now you've got a few more options to think about when it comes to your eternal resting. And, early detection is key. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I reiterate
go get
that.
those. Go to your doctor.
Yeah, check your family history.
Yeah.
Do your 23andMe. That can tell you. But if you're in Oregon, if you download the app, you send them spit, it's all free, and it's very fucking cool. So I don't know what our next episode's going to be, but that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go along.
I don't even know where we are. I think
Surprise
we're doing
for us?
spooky stuff.
Spooky
ghost things.
Ooh, ghost stories.
I think that's what it is. I think that's what we're going to do. Spooky ghost stories. Hit us up with your spooky ghost stories.
Yeah, tell us spooky ghost stories. Also, I want to throw it out there. Hey, if you want to come to story night with me and Chrissy and Chuck Polinick, I will put all the information out there. If you live in Portland, or if you don't, you could be like, Matt, who drives from Spokane every story night. If you want to come sit in a bar and listen to us writers tell some stories, join us. Dude, I'll put all the details up on the show notes.
It's pretty dope.
It's very cool. Megan went to the first few with me. She's an, what is that? A founding member.
Oh, shit, I am, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just gets cooler and cooler every week. So I want to put the shout out. If you want to come to story night, hit me up and fucking come check it out. It'll be awesome. So
yeah, it's really dope, though.
Until spooky time. We'll see you next week.